figure out based on the arm they raise? Like, that's bullshit, man. Like, there's no way. And then now that I've played the game, I'm like, oh yeah, it raises its left arm. Like E9S is a great example of just like, yeah, raise that arm. That's how you know. And it doesn't phase me at all anymore. And I'm like, all right.
Today, I'm talking with someone that I've had the great opportunity of meeting when I started playing Final Fantasy XIV. They've played World of Warcraft for a long time, to my knowledge, and they finally decided to give Final Fantasy XIV a try. And I'm looking forward to chatting with them tonight and getting to know them better and shooting the shit. So if you're new here, essentially what we're going to do is I'm just going to ask him a bunch of questions that I have planned out. And then towards the end of the segment, we will open it up to the chat for any questions that you all may have. So I'm going to bring Travy over and we're going to talk about his experiences with Final Fantasy XIV and what it's been like being a WoW refugee. So bring Travy over. What's up, Travy? How's it going?
Hey, how's it going, Tyci? How you doing, brother?
I'm tired, but we're doing good. We're doing good. I heard that you just cleared E11S.
Like 5 minutes ago, finally. Man.
How was that?
It was really good, man. It was really good. It felt nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, like we've been working on it together as like a static for a while, but I've even been pugging it a lot in my off time, and so it felt good to finally get that kill.
Yeah, it's always a good feeling to finally down a boss you've been working on. How long have you guys been working on E11S now?
I think as a group only like 3 to 4 weeks, but we've had like a lot of attendance issues, kind of like just scheduling stuff. One of our guys was moving, that kind of thing. But me personally, I probably have close to 150 or more pulls on it, even like on my own, with just pug groups of like learning groups and stuff like that, and just learning that fight as much as I can.
Yeah, and I'll definitely dive into that a bit here in a little bit because I do have some questions planned out for some questions about wipe counts and such later on that I'm curious about. But let's start talking about kind of where you came from, where you are now. You used to play World of Warcraft. What made you quit? What was the final tipping point? Do you plan on going back? Kind of tell me about that experience or journey.
Sure. I played World of Warcraft since the end of Vanilla, beginning of Burning Crusade kind of era, up until Shadowlands, with a few breaks here and there, a few month break here and there, but for the most part constantly. And I had one of those breaks was actually at the end of BFA. That was the first time I thought I was going to quit completely. The raid scene, I just wasn't enjoying as much. I wasn't in the best guild at the time either, to be fair. I mean, they were good. They got cutting edge eventually and stuff, but they weren't progressing at the rate that I wanted to. But I had a lot of friends there, so I didn't want to like leave them. It was kind of a weird dichotomy. I was like an officer in the guild for a long time too, so it would feel weird to be like, all right, later guys, but the main things that really got me to stop playing the game, it's funny, I've joked about this with a lot of friends, but it's like less of a joke and more of a serious thing, is that I got to a point where just hitting the buttons in the game wasn't fun anymore. And I would take little breaks here and there to play other games, and I would remember that like video games are supposed to be fun. You know what I mean? Like the only fun that I was getting out of WoW was whatever kind of achievement I could accomplish, but the path to getting there wasn't very fun to me. And the part that really made it my eyes open was I was maining a boomkin at the beginning of Shadowlands because Druid has been my main class historically throughout all of WoW, and I started playing boomkin, went into the raid the first night, and they were probably the best class in the game for the entire raid tier, at least for Nathria, at the start. And even when I was wrecking in there, getting a lot of orange parses and heroic, things like that, I still wasn't really having fun. Like, just like I said, mechanically hitting the buttons was not giving me the good drugs in the brain. So, I kind of got fed up. There was some drama with the raid team that, you know, I'm not gonna get into, but
Sure.
I kind of had that wake up call of just like, I'm investing so much time in this for something that I don't really enjoy, and why am I doing that? So I actually quit in February of this year. I want to say it was February. It was before 9.1 dropped.
Yeah.
And I just, you know, I played a bunch of different games for a while. I went through some old libraries like the Souls games and stuff like that. I played Subnautica, which is an amazing game. I just was going through my backlog of Steam, and then finally I started to play Elder Scrolls Online for a little bit, and I was having fun with that because I had that MMO itch. And then Sinbad started playing, our friend Sinbad started playing Final Fantasy and kind of dragged me in that way.
How is Elder Scrolls, by the way, these days? I haven't played it since the beta and the launch, and I know it had a pretty rough launch, and I haven't touched it since.
Elder Scrolls is a weird game. Like, there's a lot. Elder Scrolls played casually, I think, is a fantastic game.
Okay.
Like, especially if you like the lore of the world and stuff, kind of, you know, like if you're okay with going through the quests and the cutscenes, the story is really good. It's probably the best story of any Elder Scrolls game. And all that kind of stuff. But like, I was trying to tank in that game too, and there was like a lot of like, you had to learn how to animation cancel and do all this stuff to play like really, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and it was just like one of those things where I was so spoiled by WoW's combat, especially, of just not having to deal with a lot of jank in just how it ran. Like WoW still has, in the sense, it's very smooth. You hit the button, the thing happens. You know what I mean? And like, there's not really any input delay, and that's, Blizzard games have always been good with that. So like, but yeah, if you're not trying to take it super seriously, it's not a big deal. And it was a lot of fun. It seems like an MMO that you could go to, do the story stuff, maybe do a dungeon or a raid or something, and then quit. I don't think I could have ever seen myself farming and like trying to push for anything in that game.
Yeah,
you know?
for sure. That's kind of how I feel about Guild Wars 2. It's just like, it's a game where I'm bored or something, and I just log in and like I fantasize about how much I love the game, and then I just log out.
Yeah, that's how it goes, man.
So
Totally.
You're playing Final Fantasy 14 now. Talk about that journey from like when you started playing to where you are now, and kind of your experience along that path.
Sure. Well, that's been a journey and a half, my dude.
Sure.
So,
yeah.
I mentioned earlier, my buddy Sinbad's. I used to play WoW with him. He was in my guild for a while, and he one night drunkenly was in our guild's Discord and was streaming something, and I had hopped in just to like chat with him and say what's up because I hadn't seen him forever. And in classic Sinbad's fashion, just goes, dude, look at this, and he just started typing /stretch on a cat girl. And literally, he was like, "It's free, download it." And I was like, "All right, bet." So I downloaded it on the spot. And I mean, that's really like, you know, I had thought about it. Me and other friends had talked about, because I was trying to get some of my friends to play something other than WoW with me too, because I missed them. So, you know, I had talked to some friends about playing ESO, and they were like, "Well, if I play another MMO, I'm going to try Final Fantasy." Now, this was before the big kind of jump that a lot of people made.
Yeah.
So people were still kind of, you know, holding on to hope for WoW, you know, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Big old copium smokers. Yeah. But no, so I ended up downloading the game, and you know, it was fun. I've always been a big anime fan and stuff like that, and just fan of Japanese games and like media in general. So it was a very quick, easy fit. And yeah, we started kind of just leveling, and the story gripped me pretty quick, because I've just kind of been craving a good story in a game for a while. So that was the thing that got me first. And then within like a couple days, I got introduced to, I guess what you could call like the social or RP scene, but like not even really RP, it was the nightclub scene in the game. And as someone who, like, especially during COVID and stuff like that, like I used to go to clubs all the time. I'm a bartender in real life. Like the nightlife is kind of my natural place. And so, like, I had been kind of craving that interaction, but without having to spend all the money or risks that you do of going out in this day and age right now. And so it was kind of like this weird, like, breath of fresh air of just a community of people who would just play a game to just play the game. Like they
Yeah.
didn't have a goal. They didn't have, you know, besides maybe who they're gonna hook up with by the end of the
Oh my
night.
god.
But you know,
Fair.
like as far as like the game was just the platform for them to do that. You know what I mean? And
Yeah, it was the medium.
yeah, and
Yeah.
so I kind of that fascinated me. I've played D&D with multiple groups, Dungeons and Dragons throughout my life. So, you know, I have a little bit familiarity with RP, but like I will admit, I was always one of the people, like with WoW especially, who like when I saw the people who RP'd, I just thought they were nerds and like they were stupid and stuff, you know, and like why are you paying $15 a month to RP and all this stuff? And then I saw the other side. I dabbled in it a little bit. It was an interesting, weird experience, but mostly it was like the club stuff. So that was like 2.5 months of my life was basically like doing MSQ for like 2 hours a day and then spending like 8 hours at night in the nightclubs. And that was a wild time for sure. And it was fun. I met a lot of people who I still like talk to and hang out with on a regular basis. And that's honestly what hooked me, I think, the most at first, because I hadn't done a single raid yet. I'd barely done some leveling dungeons, you know what I mean?
And
All
you
that stuff.
and you didn't
Mhm.
boost, right? Like you just
No,
leveled from
I straight up from I did not spend any money on anything except for emotes until I had a level 80 character.
amazing.
Hmm. Yeah, I didn't want to. I mean,
No,
you
it's
know,
good.
in
That's awesome.
hindsight, I didn't know there was a new game plus mode in the game
Mhm.
where you could go back and do the story. In hindsight, I probably would have boosted and then just went back into the new game plus. But I'm happy with the way it turned out because it was the right way for me, you know?
Sure, especially if you were looking for a story game like you were saying that you just wanted to kind
Absolutely,
of
yeah.
be able to kill some time in and get to know the game world a bit more on.
Totally.
So I'm actually curious because like I'm a boosty boy.
Hmm.
Um and I think one of the like main selling points for 14, like there were a ton of other selling points prior to this point, but the main thing that I can recall from when I first started playing was when I first stepped foot into Holminster's Switch and like that
Okay.
dungeon. I don't know what it was about it, but like coming from World of Warcraft to Final Fantasy and experiencing a dungeon that was like so engaging and it felt like there were actually like mechanics going on, and like looking back on it now, yeah, I can go run that dungeon right now and just cruise through it with like 3 other people.
Hmm.
But at the time when I was new, it felt like a very unique experience, and it was very I don't know, it was just something that I remember a lot from when I first started playing. Was there any kind of moment like that for you, or that you can like specifically recall, or is there like a dungeon that stands out to you like that? Um
Like content wise,
yeah,
you're saying?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a couple. I don't know if I know the exact first, but the thing that stuck out to me really, really hard about Final Fantasy versus like World of Warcraft is and even Elder Scrolls Online to an extent, is that the dungeons are part of the story. Now in WoW they kind of are, some of them are, but like you could go through a whole zone and be out leveled of whatever quest sent you into the dungeon in WoW, right? Like
Sure.
let's say you're playing vanilla or something like that, and um or you could never have to step foot in the dungeon, but the dungeons just felt like an extension of the story. I mean they are like literally. You mentioned Holminster Switch, like you're going there, you know, to accomplish. I don't want to be super spoilery in case
Sure.
people
Yeah,
haven't
that's
done the
okay.
story, but you've been doing this whole quest line, part of the main scenario, and you're going to resolve a major story point in that dungeon with a group of 3 other people, and it's like I don't know, like it feels just really cool that it was connected. I think the first one that really got me in A Realm Reborn was probably oh god, let me try to it's the Midgard Summer one. What is the name of that?
Oh, I don't know. I know
Uh
which one you're talking about though.
I can find it right now. It is Keeper of the Lake. So
Okay,
Keeper
yeah.
of the Lake, I mean, I had enjoyed like even Stone Vigil, where you have to go save like you have to go save the airship that Sid had crashed years ago over there and stuff. Like that was cool. Once again, it's like you're literally seeing the story happen through because there's cutscenes and stuff too, right?
Yeah.
But the one that stuck out the most was like Keeper of the Lake, because Realm Reborn story is good, but it gets exponentially better, right? Um, Keeper of the Lake was a cool moment because you felt. I think Asmongold mentioned something like this too, but I felt the same way. It made the universe feel bigger than you thought it was. Like you thought like, oh, the boundaries are here. These are the primals. This is what's going on. And then it was like, oh, let's like remove that veil, and suddenly it's like there's a whole new kind of bigger universe out there that you're dealing with. But it was still digestible. Like I don't know. I don't want to turn this into a WoW shitting stream, but like
No,
WoW's kind
it's
of story has like the cosmic stuff has gotten so like kind of beyond just normal comprehension that unless you read all the books and follow the wikis and watch a YouTube video or five on what's going on in the story, you have no idea. Where like this was very digestible, but it still had that moment of epicness to it, and it was really cool to me. Yeah.
yeah, and I think that's something that this game does really well. Like I personally haven't been able to get much into the story myself, even though after boosting I like went back and watched hours of videos trying to learn the story. Because I
Yeah.
actually, as much as a sweat lord as I am, I actually do enjoy lore. Like I was big into WoW lore. I was big into Guild Wars 2 lore when I first started playing it. Um I loved Shadowbringers. I actually like played through Shadowbringers and I enjoyed it, which made me want to go back and learn more. But it's, I don't know, maybe someday it'll hit me, but I feel like it's something that this game does well, is that they present all the information there for you. In, like you said, a digestible way that helps you understand what's going on and it doesn't feel like they're just pulling things out of their ass.
Yeah.
And it's all in the game. I don't have to go
Exactly.
anywhere else. But yeah, I totally agree. Is since you said you didn't want to turn this into a WoW shitting stream,
Oh, we can. I was just
we
being
can.
polite, but- yeah.
That's a low
But-
hanging fruit, obviously.
Exactly.
But what do you enjoy about both games? Like, what do you enjoy about World of Warcraft today? And
Oh, sure.
it's something that may not be present in Final Fantasy 14.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the class design, especially like after the Legion reworks in World of Warcraft, was in a very good place. Like Legion, I don't want to say Legion was perfect because it wasn't. It had a lot of problems,
Of
but
course.
they nailed class design. Every single spec in the game felt unique and cool and different. And if I'm gonna take some negative points at Final Fantasy, like for example, I play tank as a main. All the tank specs definitely have their unique things, but they all kind of do the same thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they relatively, especially like Warrior and Dark Knight are almost play the exact same way in a lot of ways. And that's not a bad thing. It makes it easy to pick up a new tank and try it. But there is a lack of uniqueness of like the difference between an elemental shaman and an enhancement shaman. It's like they're both a shaman, but they're two whole different classes,
Right.
Or druid, for example, where all four specs play completely different. So I think that was really cool. I do love like the setting of World of Warcraft, and I do love the art style. Honestly, even though it's cartoony and all that, I think they captured a timeless kind of art style that will always work. And I mean, I grew up with it, so like there's a soft spot in my heart when I hear the Grizzly Hills music, or I'm doing a leveling dungeon in Burning Crusade, and I remember back in the day when I was there, doing the heroic versions of those. Like there's a lot of nostalgia there, but it's because the game did have a lot of good points to it. And there was also, up until recently, one of the things I loved about WoW is just how alive it was. There was always people on, always doing stuff. You know what I mean? Especially for someone like a degen like me who works a night job, comes home late, stays up late, I could always find weird pickup group times and all that kind of stuff. And really, up until the last two expansions, the game, it had a few kind of sleeper expansions like WoD or Cataclysm for me, but like it really didn't miss the mark that hard. And it didn't force you to do stuff you didn't want to do too much. You know, you could kind of play the game how you wanted to. If you wanted to be a PvP guy, you just went and did PvP. Obviously that changed with a lot, but you know, yeah, I think it was just that kind of freedom and all that kind of stuff back in the day. And like I said, like the combat in WoW is smooth. It's beautiful. You know,
Absolutely.
It definitely, the responsiveness of it is untouched. And
Yeah.
I think, you know, credit where it's due for them to have this 17-year-old game now that the code is probably spaghetti like you can't believe, but they can still keep that nice, you know, clean, latency, almost free gameplay at all times, which is really nice.
And it's fascinating because that it runs on the engine from Warcraft 3, which is from like the 90s.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when I was at BlizzCon in 2018 or 19, one of those years, whenever they announced Shadowlands, I spoke with a dev at the like Hilton pre-party thing on Thursday, and we were actually talking about the engine and whether if you had it like side by side, you know, back when WoW launched and today around when Shadowlands is launching, if you could even like recognize them. He's like, no, it might as well be its own engine. It's so disgustingly morphed into this beast that like it was interesting hearing his discussion on that.
Yeah, for sure. I can imagine. Yeah, I mean, it is a technical marvel that they've been able to do that, right?
Absolutely.
Like, to give credit where it's due. Like,
and like you said, the game feels amazing. Like everything feels great. The buttons are quick. Like latency's low. It just feels good to play. And I think that my personal opinion is that the client side aspect of WoW is one of the things that I wish Final Fantasy XIV would adapt. I know a lot of people wouldn't like that because it would get rid of things like slide casting, which has its own like skill gap in a way, and like they're kind of getting rid of that in a way with like some of the healers having a lower cast time and such. But
right.
For casters in general, that would definitely take away some of the skill gap that I have. But I think as overall for the game, especially as a melee player, it would just feel so much better. The game would feel so much crisper. You wouldn't have issues with things like blood weapon and you know, yesterday we were progging a 12S and for those that don't know, that's one of the Alexander raids, and there's this moment where you have to like tank LB3, and I'm like waiting there on my samurai trying to proc third eye. And there's like there's like a text script that's like telling you when this thing is gonna go off. It's like 10, it counts down from 10. Third eye is a 3-second buff. I throw up third eye at like 2 seconds, the first pull. It doesn't proc. Okay, well maybe it hits earlier, so I throw it up at like 5 seconds. The next pull, it doesn't proc. Like what the hell? Maybe it's later. I throw it up at 1 second. It still doesn't proc. So then I'm like watching the LB buff on my buff bar for like it to hit around like 2 seconds. So then like I wouldn't have to deal with any of that if it was client side and things weren't like weird in terms of snapshotting. But it is part of Final Fantasy XIV, and snapshotting is like in its way its own skill gap and own type of playstyle that 14 has. So
yeah, I did not like snapshotting at all at first as just a previous WoW player. Like it just did not click in my brain for the longest time. And you know, I have actually come around to it in a way. Like there is that thing of like the good drugs hitting your brain when, for example, on like E11S, when he's doing the lightning burnt strike, when you're able to, you know, get that without losing a global or clipping a global, and you're able to, you know, get your hit, move out, move back in, and just you're like 400 IQ predicting the animations, because you're not going off the animation, you're going off when the server registers where you are. And like, it feels pretty cool sometimes when you're like moving into an explosion, you know, like just from a thematic standpoint. It's a different kind of puzzle to solve. But I think the reason that it's okay and that it doesn't frustrate me too much yet, obviously, you know, I'm newer to the game and I'm sure there's going to be certain fights that have something that's just absolute BS. But on the ones I've experienced so far and the ones I've been learning, because the fights are set up in a way where it is predictable and it's like a dance, you can really like figure out where to, you know, either wiggle something or move something around to be able to greet that. And that's cool to me, where it's not just RNG with spell queuing and stuff like that, where you need 8 different add-ons to track everything. Like, being able to just go into the fight, and I mean, the fact that people blind prog this game blows my mind, right? As a WoW player for years, like, blind progging this game, people do it just for practice, like your group does, you know? And like, that's just mind-blowing, because for us, you had YouTube videos up of the fights before they ever came out, all that stuff, and then you would go into them and it still was kind of hard. You know, it's not like watching the video made it just to fall over every time. But you like had to watch the video because there was no way to figure out what the boss was doing half the time without having some weird prior knowledge or reading the dungeon journal or something, right? So yeah, it was just a whole different experience, but I've enjoyed the puzzle solving part of this game a lot. And then when you have a fight down, it feels like you've mastered it. And there's a very good feeling of that.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think it's something that, again, I'm in your shoes as well. Like, when I came over, like, seeing people blind prog things, it's like, why would you do that? Honestly, I'm pretty sure like the very first YouTube video that I made, I had like talked about how that was an option, but I would never do it. But it's cool that it exists. And now like I'm doing it for practice, but also for fun. Like, they're also fun to do. Like, progging some of the Omega fights, like blind, because I've never done them before, has been some of the most fun that I've had progging a fight in this game. And I highly recommend that to anyone who hasn't done them. And I opened Party Finder the other day because we were going to do like E4S or something. I don't know. We were like one of the extremes, maybe. I don't know. I opened Party Finder. There's like a group blind progging E8S in Party Finder. And I'm just like, holy crap, that's amazing. I love that fight. Like, go you.
Yeah. But, no, totally. Yeah, the fact that people like, that's another cool thing too, is people raid in this game for fun. You know what I mean? Like, people like people will go do Coils of Bahamut unsynced just cuz. Like, they're not getting gear from it. You could get the glam by, or did I say unsynced? I meant synced. Like eye level sync and or mid eye level no echo, right? They'll do it like that just because they can. There's no, you don't even get like a unique title from what I understand, right? For doing something at like the current gear it was supposed to be, like besides ultimates or whatever. But like any other raid, you can go into it as a level 80 and just, you know, stomp on it, or at least have an advantage with some of the harder fights from Stormblood that you wouldn't have if you're doing it mid-eye level. But like, people go and do that just because they can. And like, that blows my mind that people are like having fun raiding. Like, I don't remember the last time I had fun raiding in WoW. It was, no, I want the loot at the end. I want the prestige that comes with being, you know, this many kills out of whatever in Mythic, or getting cutting edge, or, you know, whatever it was, having the dope gear so I do more damage in content that I actually like Mythic Plus.
Getting clears from my vault, getting AP from the raid bosses, getting a roll on a legendary from the raid bosses. Like, basically all these random power gains that you would get from having to do the raids.
Yeah, exactly. And it was just, you know, it's a different system where the raids were an ends to a means, but like this game, I feel like every raid fight I have done from when we did the, you know, we started with a bunch of WoW refugees mongoloiding our way through UCOB, right? As the first thing we ever did. And yeah, it was a shit show, as we all knew it would be. But then we moved on to Savage content, which I think, you know, was definitely more in our wheelhouse, where it's still difficult as new players, but we're still MMO players for years. And getting those kills, like getting that first E9S kill, that E12 or E11S kill, and now we got an E11 tonight, which felt really, really good. And there's just something where, like, I haven't felt that level of like satisfaction with a raid kill in a long time, and just from killing the boss, right? Because, like, I don't know, maybe it's just because the game is new to me. It could 100% be that.
Could be.
But like in WoW, definitely, like, if I knew I didn't have a good parse on the kill when we got our first kill, I was mad. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
if I
Yeah.
died to some BS because someone stood on me with something or whatever,
Or you
and
got a
then we got the
mechanic
kill.
or something.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah, it's frustrating.
Yup. And you were just like, all right, well, this isn't my parse kill. It sucks to be me. And then that happens to be the one you kill after 150 pulls. You're just like, this sucks, dude. But that was also, I will admit, that was part of being in a guild where I didn't know if we killed a boss once, if we would ever be able to kill it again.
Yeah.
And like, there was times where that question was really in my brain. So it was a different time for sure.
Yeah. So you talked about UCOB.
Hmm.
I'm interested on your take and about UCOB, and could you kind of tell people what happened with that and what your
What happened
experience
with,
was?
like, the group specifically,
Well, just
or with
like
the fight itself?
like how you got into UCOB, what your experience was going into UCOB, and then what you thought about UCOB itself.
Sure. No, yeah. I mean, UCOB was that was a fun experiment that me and my group of friends who all came over the Final Fantasy did. I knew a couple of the people in the group. Most of them I was meeting for the first time, and it was a good group of people. And it was us wanting to see what the hardest content in the game looked like, right off the bat, with no prep, no nothing. Maybe watch like half a YouTube video on the first mechanic. We basically went in blind, and we wanted to, because we wanted to see what the big stink was about ultimates, right? And obviously T is the hardest ultimate, but we chose UCOB for various different reasons. And we went in, and yeah, it fucking slapped. It was definitely a step up from most things I had done, but in a way it was strangely easier than I thought it would be, and harder at the same time. And I think the harder part was just me not being used to the game, but it was easier because you could learn it, which is not something I was used to at that point. I was not used to the idea that you can learn a fight like down to basically the second of,
Yeah.
This is when this mechanic comes out at this exact second. This is what, maybe there's a little variation, like for example on the nail phase, she'll either do a chariot or a dynamo, but she's doing one of the two at this exact time. And like that kind of stuff, that was where I was like, oh, you can actually just mongoloid ape this fight and learn it through pure repetition. Like,
Yep.
down to the point where I had it down by the time we kind of set UCOB aside and decided to go do Savage instead, because we actually wanted to see bosses hit the floor. I had it down to where I knew, to the global I was hitting in my rotation, where I needed to be standing, where I needed for at least the first couple phases, right?
Yeah.
And that kind of, yeah, that was the biggest eye-opening thing from UCOB, I think. And I think it made me a better player overall than if I would have went straight into like what I guess the intended path is, which is like what, extremes, and then savages, and then ultimates. By going straight to the deep end first, yeah, we didn't accomplish a kill with it, but it taught me so much about the game so fast that I feel like I came out of it just my eyes very open to what this game is about. Like what the developers want you, how they want you to solve the puzzle, basically, of a raid fight.
Have you
which
ever
was really cool.
Have you ever seen I think it's on the Final Fantasy 14 YouTube channel. I might be wrong. They do like a dive into talking about the Innocence fight.
Okay. No, I've not seen it.
And essentially they talk about like how they designed the fight and what their, I guess, goals were for the fight. Hold on, let me get rid of this.
Sure. I am aware that innocence is considered the easiest
But
of the extremes, right?
but basically they were wanting maybe, I'm not actually sure.
From this expansion.
If
at
I'm
least.
being honest, I didn't really do innocence much extreme. But they were basically alluding to the fact that they wanted the fight to be learnable, almost not even through trial and error, but through just like while you were doing it, if that makes sense.
Right. They wanted you to be able to pick it up as your mid pull.
Exactly. And I think that is fascinating because it was the first time I had heard like a developer not take the angle of trial and error on a fight, because that's what most raids are. Like pretty much all raids, even in WoW and Final Fantasy, are trial and error. But hearing their take on innocence was such an interesting ideology, and then like going back into the fight, it's like, oh, I could totally see how they think this, or how they implemented this mechanic in, so that you could know that based off of a cue that like the boss does, or that the arena does, or something. Totally recommend it, by the way, but it was just an interesting take, and I think it says a lot.
That's a funny thing you bring up, actually. Now that I think about it, is I remember before I ever played Final Fantasy, or thought I was ever going to play Final Fantasy, Preach, WoW Preach, or I guess he's not WoW Preach anymore, Preach Gaming. He did a video where he like would blind look at footage from a Final Fantasy raid fight.
Oh yeah.
And had to guess what the mechanics were. Like his buddy was kind of quizzing him on it, right? And I remember in that video, when the buddy was explaining some mechanic, I think it was on Titania, I can't remember, it might have been on they also had Uwu in that YouTube video, but it was on one of them where one of the mechanics that had to be resolved was based on the arm that the boss raised. And I remember thinking in my brain at the time, that's bullshit. Like there's no way. There's no way you can see a boss raise, because it was like a humanoid boss too. It wasn't, giant Nazoth raising a tentacle or something.
Right,
It was like, something relatively small that was being covered by spell effects that I didn't know you could turn off. And like I just remember being like, you have to figure out based on the arm they raise? Like that's bullshit, man. Like there's no way. And then now that I've played the game, I'm like, oh yeah, it raises its left arm. Like E9S is a great example of just like, yeah, raise that arm. That's how you know. And it doesn't faze me at all anymore, and I'm like, all right, for sure.
It was honestly kind of intimidating, at least for me, coming from WoW, because like I never looked at the boss ever. No. I had no reason to, right? Like I look at I did like pilot training in real life, and like something they teach in pilot training in pilot school is like you're constantly doing like an eye movement rotation, essentially, where you look at like your gauge and then the sky and then whatever, like you keep bouncing your eyes around, but in like a regulated motion. And I kind of do that while I play MMOs, right? And in WoW, it was, I look at my character, I look at my hotbar, I look at my weak auras, I look at my character, look at my hotbar, and I'm kind of bouncing through this rotation. So then coming to WoW, or coming to Final Fantasy 14, it's like, okay, now I have to have 4 different eye movements because now I have to look at the boss.
Yep.
So
and then you add something like UCOB, you have to look at the dialogue that the boss just said on like Nail, for example. Like some of that is a bit ridiculous, but like it's cool at the same time. And if you have someone who can call it out, like God bless,
one thing I wish they did with Nail was that speech thing. I wish that was a sound cue. I'm a big sound cue person.
Sure. Yeah, 100%.
What were you saying? I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, I was just saying that was, something that I was very comfortable doing in WoW was raid calling for the most part. But I had tools like DBM where I could see a timer coming up and give a heads up to the raid. Whereas in this, it was like you have to remember what mechanics come in next, because I'm not using anything like CACBot or anything like that. And you have to remember what mechanics coming next. You have to, figure out how you resolve it, and then relay that to the group. So not only are you doing the problem in your brain, but you're also doing it with your mouth simultaneously. And so raid calling out in this game, I have mad respect for people who can just do it. And it comes with a lot of practice, I'm sure. Like, you know, I can do it successfully sometimes, but there's times where like for example, on E11S tonight, like I have to hit Dark Missionary as a Dark Knight to help with one of the Burnished Glories, the big AoE abilities, right? And like I'm doing my blood weapon / delirium rotation while fitting that in, and like I'm yelling out into Discord, I'm doing the thing. Like that's all I can fit there. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm just hoping that they trust and they know that I am doing the thing. But you know, it's one of those things. But I really like, I mean, both games have their bonuses, like their pros and cons. There's definitely cons about Final Fantasy rating.
Absolutely.
Part of, you know, that whole thing we talked about with snapshots and server, it's a double-edged sword. Because there's times where you're getting hit by a mechanic that you have no right getting hit by because of how the server snapshots your character's position. But like, it just looks so obscene and ridiculous that like you can't help but get frustrated because you're just looking at your character 40 feet away from something and you're like, yep, all right, guess that hit me somehow, you know?
Yeah.
But you know, there's ways to overcome that, but it's definitely not as streamlined and clean. Like, to give WoW something for sure in rating, if there's a puddle on the floor, if you are not in the puddle when it explodes, you're fine. Like, like I think 99.9% of the time. Maybe there's an exception, but like, yeah, it's pretty much every time you're chilling. But rating has been a lot of fun.
What?
Go ahead.
What's your opinion on how because you were kind of talking about like learning the fight in like a rhythm and one thing after the other without much sporadicness. What's your opinion on the relationship between how the fights play out in Final Fantasy and WoW with regards to like having to also keep up your globals, right? Because and I'm sure you've already recognized this, and you were talking about it when you were talking about UCOB earlier. You're not only just learning the fight, you're learning where your globals line up in the fight and how to min-max your globals in the fight. Like in WoW, since there's a lot of procs, there's a lot of sporadicness in the fight, especially with like getting mechanics, or there's just random procs that you get on your hotbar that give you different abilities. You're not always going to be at the same spot in a fight that you would have been the last pull or 2 pulls ago. How has that been coming to Final Fantasy? Do you enjoy having a more static feel, or do you like the sporadicness that WoW offers?
It's comfort and frustration at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
In WoW, if I fuck up one global in my rotation, there's a good chance I don't feel it, right? In Final Fantasy... Or even know that it happened, right? Like straight up, like you just you can mongoloid hit something out of order and out of the correct order, and you're probably fine. In Final Fantasy, you feel it, and it helps you learn how to play your class a lot better, a lot faster. I feel if you really are trying to care about nailing every global and making sure you're playing efficiently and stuff, like, oh, I made a mistake. Like, and learning from mistakes is the fastest way to learn, right? So, you're gonna learn very quickly about certain things like that, of what's dope and what's not dope. But it's a double-edged sword, because like I said, instantly when you messed up, but that can get in your head as you try to fix your mess up. Like, for example, I've been playing a lot of Samurai lately, so like, let's say I mess up, or a mechanic forces me out or something, and then I'm in my brain, I'm thinking 5 steps down the road of my filler phase of where I'm gonna how I can move that around, or can I cut a global from that, or cut it out completely, yada yada. Meanwhile, the boss is casting like a Protean or something and I'm not really looking at him because I'm looking at my cooldown timers real quick. So like, there's certain things where ignorance can be bliss, right? Like, just straight up, if you don't know the bad thing is coming, or you did the bad thing rather, you're probably you'll probably play better in the long run. But when you're trying to play perfect or as close to perfect as you can, you'll notice it very quickly in this game. For someone like me who I, can be self-critical on myself when it comes to things like that, it's a double-edged sword. Like I said, it can cause me to spiral on a
Hyperfixate on it
screw up.
and just like
Yeah, like a screw up, like almost snowball effect, where like
sure.
you screw up once and then that causes another screw up to happen as you're trying to panic fix the first one, even if you can fix it. And sometimes, like I said, I wish I didn't have the knowledge, because then I could just hit my buttons and call it a day. But I try to play the best I can. So it definitely, it's not a bad thing about the game. It's just a different getting used to, and you just have to not get frustrated at it when it happens and calmly fix whatever happened. But you can feel it. Yeah, you can 100% feel that shit.
And I think that makes it kind of difficult to really compare the combat of WoW and Final, because they're both tab target MMOs, but they're also very different in how they play.
Yeah.
But you chose a bad class to mess up in your loop on. It's actually kind of funny. You could genuinely do well on Samurai and have no idea what you're doing. Like, I think the floor.
Oh, I've learned that too.
Yeah, I think the floor for Sam is actually really low, but the ceiling is omega high. So there's like a lot of middle ground to cover. And like on a class like Ninja, for example, if you mess up outside of your trick window, like, honestly, who cares? Unless you're going for like high 99s or something. Like, you could still orange fucking up outside of your trick window.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that this game has really taught me. And when I went back to playing WoW to do Mythic Plus, like, something that I took a lot from this game and learned a lot from this game was how to recover mistakes. And honestly, what we were talking about earlier, of like just paying attention to other things besides my little box of my character and weak auras and hotbar, like being able to see what's happening with the raid, being able to see what bosses are doing, what ads are doing. Obviously, like, I still make those mistakes today playing 14, but I'm at least more conscious of it, and I can at least make an effort to correct that or pay attention to it.
Well, you bring up a good point too, of the fact that keeping your eyes on the boss because of mechanics and stuff also lends to the fact that this game is a spectacle when it comes to raiding. It is always flashy. It is always showing off crazy effects and all that kind of stuff. Like, it is in your face with that kind of stuff. And I think that's a really smart design decision on their part, of like I don't ask me what Sire Denathrius's room has in it. Just ask me right now. I don't fucking. It has a hole in the middle of it. Eventually, right? Like, that's all I remember. Like, you jump down it, and then there's some bridges and shit.
There might be a painting on the wall. I can't even recall.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But I could probably describe to you, like, all of the Eden raids quite well, because you have to look around the room. You have to do these things just as part of the fight, which to some people might sound annoying, and sometimes it is. I'll be honest. But you're getting a good view of what they're trying to show you, and I think that's pretty cool. At the same time, is like, these devs put a lot of time into their stuff. They're gonna make sure you look at it,
and they put a lot of time into the floor, which I'm sure you've already noticed. Like, a lot of the arenas, and I think this is actually a big complaint that I've heard from other WoW players, and I'm interested on your take. But
sure.
A lot of the arenas, although they are circle and square, which is the complaint that I've heard, they implement a lot of like markings on the floor, or they shape lines and stuff on the floor for a specific reason because of how mechanics work in the fight. Good example, I know you haven't done E8S yet. However, when you do, there is a mechanic. I won't spoil too much of it in case you do want to blind prog it in the future, but there is a mechanic where it uses the diamonds in the arena. Like, the arena is a snowflake with like 8 points for the 8 players, or the 8
Right.
cardinal and intercardinal directions. And there are like these diamonds on the ground that you actually use or can use to avoid a mechanic. And it's little things like that, like in T, the little light circles on the ground in T indicate different spots where I believe the circles during limit cut can spawn.
Uh-huh.
The way that they use the arenas and design the arenas, and especially the ground art, is very fascinating to me. And being able to like map out not only the mechanics of the fight, not only the globals of the fight, but your positioning in the arena as well during a fight based off of ground indicators is such a cool thing to me. And I love it.
Yeah, no, it lends to the learning of the fact that these fights are like a dance, right? And that you're supposed to learn them. At least that seems to be the developer's intention, is through repetition of playing. I mean, obviously, like you were saying with the innocence thing, they do make mechanics similar or easily telegraphed for the most part, so that you can figure out what they do pretty quick. But the arenas being, from what I have seen, at least in the Savage stuff and the Ultimate stuff, everything seems perfectly symmetrical as well.
Yeah.
Right? It's always a perfect square or a perfect circle with, it's on things like cardinals and inner cardinals, where these markers on the floor or these little designs are. And it's like a subtle way of the devs giving you places to stand without putting markers on the floor. E11S is perfect for that. When you're doing like blue uptime, for example, there's 2 little lines on the floor that perfectly, if you and your partner stand on those, you won't protein each other, but you're close enough for the, if you have to be a stack partner right after. And it's little things like that is just like, we don't have to put another marker on the floor to tell people where to go. It's like, no, it's just, there's this marker right here that you can use on the floor of the arena, and you can explain it that way. And that's really cool to me.
I agree.
It's a total different, like I said, it's a total different puzzle to solve. There's times in WoW raids that I felt like you needed just good RNG on spell queuing, on the order of things coming out. There was times where overlaps could happen on one pull that were terrible, and then on the next pull that overlap never happens and you get the kill. And it just felt like, even then, like, the only reason you got that kill is because that overlap didn't happen.
Yeah.
Where in this game, if a bad overlap happens, it's gonna happen every time. So you just gotta, that's an intentional bad overlap, dude. You gotta learn it, And so, yeah, I don't know. They're 2 very different games. I don't see myself going back to WoW though, personally.
Well, all I can say is I cannot wait for you to do T.
Hell yeah.
Or E8S. Those are the 2 fights that I just love. I think they're so well designed in terms of progression. I hated parsing E8S. It was the worst thing in existence. But progressing the fight was amazing. And I hope that you at least try those at some point. I know you'll do T because you sound like you've got the itch, but E8S being an older raid, highly recommend at least giving it a try, even if you're not blind progging it. So
I'm definitely down to do older raids. Like, even
hell yeah.
Like, I'm down to do Stinky Bahamut in coils with my Stinky coils turns with my level 50 abilities. Like, I don't care, man. Like, watching streamers doing things like Ifrit Extreme mid item level, like, I saw that and I was like, that is so fucking cool that you can go do that right now. Like, obviously they have a little bit of streamer privilege that people are going to queue up with them just to do it. But I bet if I made a group, I could get a group together in an hour or something like that. You know what I mean?
I think you
like
could,
during peak hours at least, like, of enough people who are just like, yeah, screw it, let's do it.
Shit, I would go.
So, yeah, exactly. Like, just because, like I said, people raid in this game just for fun.
Yeah.
And that's just a mind-blowing thing to me, and it's really cool. Yeah.
So, you talked a little bit about playing tank. What jobs are you playing now? You also talked a little about samurai. I I guess what I'm trying to get at is what are you playing now and what do you actually want to play? Because it seems like you're kind of crossing the boundaries of roles here.
Sure. Yeah. So I started as a honestly, I started as a marauder because I didn't know warrior was a tank. I didn't look into it prior. I just wanted something with a big two-hander,
Sure.
right? I knew Dark Knight was a tank and they had the two-handed sword, so I was kind of bummed about that. But I was like, two-handed axe. Let me just be like a big smack people in the face warrior, you know. And then like at like level, I don't know, 12 or 13, you get your enmity generating passive and you're like, "Oh, I'm a tank." F. Like, all
Yeah.
right. But I sent it. I've tanked a lot in WoW. Not not a ton in like mythic content, but I did quite a bit of mythic plus tanking. Never super high pushing or anything like that. Not as a tank at least. Um and I really enjoyed tanking in WoW, especially in dungeons. I thought it was a lot of fun. But I historically have been a healer in WoW up until the last couple expansions. I was always a healer, from vanilla up until basically Legion, with DPS alts or whatever here and there just to have fun. And this time around, I'm playing a whole new game. I heard healing was kind of stressful in this game, and I just wanted to kind of learn it and do something new. So I got into tanking. I adore tanking in this game. I think it is so much fun. Um, I think it's very engaging compared to something like WoW tanking. I think the fact that you have to use your mitigations very often throughout a fight and stuff like that, and they're not all just oh shit buttons is really cool. Um, I guess it's very proactive opposed to
Yeah.
reactive, right? Um, and they're boss positioning and all that stuff. That's an NA MMO. It's a little more important in this game, obviously, because melees have like positionals they need to hit and all that kind of stuff. But it's been a lot of fun, and the fact that tanks rotations are meaningful, that their damage contributes like is meaningful. Like if a tank, you can tell the difference in a clear when you have a tank that's just hitting whatever his 1 2 3 over and over again and not lining things up with trick and all that stuff, and a tank who does. You can literally feel it in how
Yeah.
fast it takes to kill a boss, and that's really cool to me. Because wow, tanks are sitting under the healers most of the time. They're kind of just there to get smacked, which is cool. That's their job in that game, and there's nothing wrong with it. But I like the more engaging thing. And tanks and dungeons are even fun too. I think just a quick side note, dungeons in this game are very interesting in the fact that once you learn wall to wall pulling and stuff like that, every pull is giant. And it's
Yeah.
actually really cool that like every pull is just a huge AoE fest and then you just go kill a boss and then do it again. It's really fun.
I agree. I really
Yeah.
hope they expand the dungeon scene. I feel like it's
Mhm.
not a very popular thing, although they have. I'm pretty sure even in one of the recent Q and A's with Yoshi B, it was brought up. But
Mhm.
like, I would love for them to do something similar to Mythic Plus. I know that they're very linear dungeons and they're just like a tunnel that you run through, but like
Yeah.
you could min max is all my point. That's my point.
Yeah.
You could min max it,
Uh
and I think it'd be fun, and it would give. It's just another avenue that this game would offer for people who just want to be mongoloids in some random aspect of the game.
sure. I think I'm actually okay with them not doing that. And it ties into one of the things I love about this game is how balanced it is. And the fact
Yes,
that everything is balanced for single target and dungeons don't really matter is what allows them to keep that. That's why you don't run into the like Blizzard problem of like some classes insane in Mythic Plus but trash in Raid, and then you're like, but you need gear from Raid to be good in Mythic Plus, and so you're
and then they
basically
start tying
inting
in
in Raid.
PvP, and then oh
Uh-huh.
god, yeah,
Exactly. So there is something about the simplicity of just everything's balanced for single target. Dungeons are there, but we don't take them seriously. I think that's okay, and it makes dungeons kind of a fun thing. Mythic Plus is a great system in a bubble, like in theory, when it's done correctly. I think Mythic Plus is fucking dope,
yeah,
but I think it would be very hard to fit it in this game and not bring some of those problems to the table if they tried to make it competitive in the same way raids were, right? If they were just like, oh, we'll just throw harder dungeons at you and see how it goes. Like, sure. Like I'd be down for hard as hell dungeons, like with almost savage level mechanics. You know what I mean? Maybe not
Mhm.
like a timer based thing, or and maybe the loot is like close to like the savage level or something, or like maybe it gives you extra revelation, whatever the revelations will be called next expansion, right? So like you can farm your tome gear faster or something. There's things they could do in that regard, but I don't think a whole system would be probably good.
Yeah, the balancing thing is a good point as well, because I think it's if it were me, and I'm not a game dev,
Hmm.
but my personal take is I would just split the 3 into their own balancing things. So when you step foot into that content, that is how it's balanced in that
Sure.
content.
Kind of
However,
like
I
how they
know
do with PvP.
exactly, I know that it's not that
Hmm.
easy.
Yeah.
I like what Guild Wars 2 does in the sense of you go into PvP, PvP has its own balancing. You're automatically max level. You get a template. You can go to the gear
Hmm.
vendor in the PvP zone, buy whatever pieces you want to kind of fit your stat weights that you want,
Hmm.
and that's the game for PvP. And PvE is an entirely separate thing. But yeah, I could see like when you start crossing dungeons and raids, which one do you balance off of? Obviously, since raids are the only real form of, I guess you can say, PvE end game outside of like Palace of the Dead, I suppose, if you're doing
Yeah,
solo
like
stuff.
necromancer
Yeah,
runs.
like
Yeah.
Necromancer runs, but like they're gonna balance the classes off of that.
Hmm.
And then if people start getting really hardcore into dungeons, like which group do you listen to, or do you split that into its own separate things? But I don't know.
Yeah.
Even if
I
it
mean, if
was
they're
balanced off a raid, I still think it'd be fun. I just
oh,
like I just like
100%.
doing competitive shit, and I think that would just be like a fun another thing to do. So
I think if there's a team that could do it, it's probably the Final Fantasy team. Like find a
yeah,
good balance for
yeah,
it, right?
they
Like
could,
they've
yeah.
shown they've shown that they understand how to balance things so well. The fact that, yeah, like I said, when I came over to this game and after I had been playing Warrior for a while and was gonna level something else, I was like, all right, what's good? And my friends were like, dude, just play what you want, man. I
Everything.
was yeah, I was like, what do you mean? Like there's nothing that's just like you're not inting if you bring this, and they're like, no, you're fine. Like you can literally clear anything in the game. And I was
Yeah,
just like, okay. I mean, obviously there's gonna be things that are better than others, but it's so close that and it's only really in like speedrun and parse community that it seems that like that community perception even matters. I've yet to see like a bard in a group be told like, "Hey, you don't do damage, leave." You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like obviously that's against TOS, but you know,
Yeah,
but like, I have yet to see someone be like, "Man, if only you were a machinist," or do you have any other range classes? Maybe we would kill it if you did that." Like no one does that because everyone has that understanding that like the game's balanced. But
yeah.
I mean, I'm always down for more content, man. I mean,
Oh,
I have a lot of
absolutely.
content to catch up on. But
You do.
to go back to your question you really originally answered or asked me rather, you're asking me about tank versus DPS, all that kind of stuff. So it's like what I'm feeling more and all that.
Mhm. Yep.
I still think that I consider myself a tank main, and I'll probably stick with that for now. But almost every class I have touched in this game, I have been of the mindset if I had to main this, I wouldn't be mad at the bare minimum. And then others I've been like, ooh, I want to main this. Right.
Right.
So to give you an idea, the classes I have maxed out and played relatively a lot on all four tanks: warrior, paladin, gunbreaker, dark knight, dragoon, samurai. um the only class I have not liked that I have touched so far is bard, and that was once I got it to high level, and that was only because it felt just extremely overwhelming. Proc gameplay in this game is like it breaks my brain because this game, in my opinion, is like planned. So when things are popping all over your screen,
Sure.
it doesn't feel planned, and it like throws a wrench in that. But even then, I still had fun with Bard until the procs, like the later levels when the procs started getting out of control for me. Um, I I would say that like my main going into Endwalker will most likely be Dark Knight slash Paladin. Probably more paladin, to be honest. Um, just because I think it's a safer pick right now with just how much like I think it's more of the mongoloid pick currently, besides like warrior maybe. Where you have so much uptime because of your ranged phase. You have 16 seconds every minute of just ranged uptime, which means that you don't have to be perfect globally for 16 seconds of that fight. Yeah, you miss some auto attacks and stuff like that, but you're still doing meaningful damage from far away while you're learning a fight and stuff like that, which I think is really cool. And I honestly like paladins thematically too. Um, and then Dark Knight's just my baby. I fucking love Dark Knight.
Do you like
It's
spreadsheeting?
no. Why? That paladin life?
Probably wouldn't recommend Paladin. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh yeah.
No, that's like any class in this game. I feel like at
I
a
was
high
about to
level,
say
yeah.
I saw that samurai spreadsheet, man. I'm just saying.
Oh man. So tank,
Tank
probably
with
tank
melee DPS
Endwalker.
aspect. Yeah.
Um, what are your goals for Endwalker? What do you plan on doing? Like, what are your primarily raiding? Like, what are your raid
Sure.
goals for Endwalker?
Yeah. Raid goal wise, we're looking at um clearing the savage tier when it comes out within a reasonable amount of time. I'm not looking for obviously any sort of like world first or even probably world 100 push, but just getting the bosses down. I want to clear it with enough time that we have some options for ultimates in the downtime, or just other content that we want to do, like doing old raids and stuff like that. But yeah, getting bis, just basically my plan is to get bis every tier and then do whatever I want. Maybe getting to the parsing scene and stuff like that. It does interest me. Um, Parsing and speeds and stuff like that are cool, and I think that could be a fun way to spend the end game too. But the first priority is just because this will be my first raid tier from scratch.
Yeah.
Is just getting in there, learning the fights, killing the fights, getting your gear, standing in Limson looking cool, and then just moving on with your day and doing whatever you want with your free
Sure.
time. Because once you have your bis and you've killed all the fights, like you've beat the raid per se, right? It's like in WoW, there was always there was Titan forging for years and things like that. You never were really done with the raid, unless all you cared about was like the world first race, right?
Sure.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I never got bis in Nathria.
Hmm.
Never. Crazy to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah,
After how many times
too many.
those bosses were killed.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I think that's a good goal. Like, especially for like you were saying, your first, real tier. Like, just enjoy it, experience it. Don't try to take it too quickly. Don't try to take it too slow. Just go at your own pace and enjoy it. And if you do clear and get bis, I think 615, I believe. I might be wrong on that. 6.2 maybe is when or 6.1. I don't know. The patches all confuse me. Regardless,
Yeah.
the patch after the Savage will be the ultimate raid. So that'll be exciting, and you can maybe even just dive straight into that if that's what you want to do, or you can go do T or whatever. So
Yeah. I mean, it's like Nidhogg or something, right? Is
Mhm.
the new one.
The
I mean,
theme.
yeah, exactly. And like, I'm a sucker for killing giant dragons, dude.
Yeah.
So it sounds super hype to me. Plus, from what I understand, the weapons will actually be good, like for your class.
They will.
When you get them for a while, not just for the showing off. Yeah,
For
I mean
that
that would
tier.
be for that tier exactly. That would be a lot of fun. Yeah, and I mean I'm the kind of person who just slams his head against raids, man. Like I don't mind it. I don't mind a lot of wipes.
You'll
Um,
enjoy it. And if you
yeah.
don't mind wipes, you'll enjoy parsing because it's
Uh-huh.
nothing but wipes and then a couple kills.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. So, yeah, I mean that all sounds fun to me. And a big part of it too is just on a little kind of side note is just experiencing the new expansion and stuff with like my friends and the people I've met in this game. You know what I mean? Just from the ground up, me like nerding out about the story with people who I know care about it, you know, and all that kind of stuff. That'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always a fun time too when a new raid releases, cross-referencing with like all the other people you know about like,
Hmm.
hey, we did this mechanic this way on this fight. Like, how did you guys do it? What, like, even though you could be multiple weeks throughout the raid tier, people will adapt their own strategies, or there will be other strategies that they learn. I know in WoW that like a majority of the strategies were like Fat Boss, right?
Yeah, sure.
Or they were some kind of variation. In this game, since you resolve a lot of the mechanics very strategically, or you have to coordinate with the other people in your group to resolve a mechanic, there are, you know, popular guides like Miztech. Ilya releases a lot of good strategies for early mechanics during prog, but you'll see a lot of stuff in Party Finder, or you'll find other groups, people from your friend circles doing things differently, or they found this random strategy online to do this mechanic and they're doing it, and it's like, it's so interesting to see the different ways to resolve different mechanics. And then as the tier progresses and people start optimizing those mechanics, you almost end up, well, no, you literally end up reprogging the fight again to learn how to
learn the new stuff.
Yeah, learn how to parse it and learn how to speed it. So it's really interesting, and
it's cool.
It keeps the raid fresh in a way. So
yeah, the fight's not solved before it comes out. You know what I mean? Which is cool. It gives time for the community to grow it and figure it all out and stuff. So no, that shit's dope, man. And that sounds very exciting to me personally, because I fucking love stuff like that.
I'm so hyped for you to try a new tier. I'm excited to hear your feedback on that.
I'm stoked.
I only had a couple more questions.
Sure.
For now, I'm gonna open it up to the chat if they have any questions for you. I'll let them go ham, but I'll finish up my couple of questions and then just I'll double weave the questions from the chat.
Okay,
if we get any. So, have you heard of the 9.1.5 patch for World of Warcraft?
Oh yeah, the I'm sorry patch. Yeah.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that? And do you think it's good steps that they're taking or not?
It's too little too late, but it's still good for the people who are playing the game still, right? Like, they're getting things that they deserve and they need. And a lot of quality of life fixes that should have been there long ago. It's not something that, like, none of those problems that they are fixing, like, you know, covenant swapping, all those things, none of those are problems where I'm like, man, if only they would fix this, I still would play the game. Maybe at the time when I quit, if they had fixed those, I would still be playing the game, but the distance apart has just caused me to kind of take a step back and look at how Blizzard runs their game as a whole. Like I said, I think it's good for the people who are still diehard fans of the game and are still playing it, and I'm happy for them that they're getting a lot of the things that they want. They do this, like, Blizzard has done this so many times, where they wait 2 patches and then fix all the problems that people were talking about in beta and alpha, and then instead of it being cool new stuff, it's, oh, we fixed the stuff that we should have fixed prior to the launch, and that's the content for this patch. Now it is a 0.5 patch at least, which means that it's not a major content patch for them. So this is the kind of patch that they should be fixing everything in, is like the kind of in-between patches. But it's still, for me, it's too little too late. Yeah.
I was about to say, a lot of this stuff is like, this is supposed to be content, but this is stuff that we've been asking for years at this point. Like, please.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right though. Like, to be fair, the 0.5 patches are mostly changes. They're not really content patches. They're like updates.
Yeah.
Little
story stuff or something maybe, but yeah, besides that.
And 9.2 is being announced tomorrow.
Right.
Which unfortunately we couldn't have this interview like tomorrow or Friday.
Yeah.
to actually talk about some of that stuff, but I am actually interested to at least hear what they have to offer. Um, I have zero plans on returning to WoW unless I can ever, which I know this will never happen. This is obviously a dream. But if I could ever just have like tournament realm access for Mythic Plus
Yeah.
so that I can just like be best in slot and run dungeons in my off time, in my free time, I would 100% do that. But I don't foresee WoW being like my main game
No.
anytime in the near future, just because it's like you said, it's a cycle, and it's
They
sad.
can't monetize that as well either, because if you just go in there with BIS and you're just playing dungeons, even though that is probably the most fun content in that game and you would probably play it a lot.
Oh
I know
my
I
god,
would.
I would play the
play it
shit
so
out
much.
of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Could you imagine, like, I don't want to say an Overwatch style game, but basically an Overwatch style game, except 5-man content, and it's an MMO, quote unquote. It's a tab target game where you just like load in with the loadout and you just spam dungeons. Like, that would be fun to me. I know some people would fucking hate that, but
sure, yeah. That would be really fun. No, that's once again comes back to the things that when WoW's combat works and it's good, it's really good. And that was the main thing you said. Tab target MMO. You know, like they've nailed the tab target MMO. So, you know, having something like that would be hella dope. The problem is, like, and maybe I'm just cynical, but they can't monetize your time by that. And like that's just what Blizzard kind of has been up to lately, is they want to suck up as much of your time so that your sub fee, even though it's stayed the same price, you're more likely to keep subbed because you're playing so much. And yeah, that's how they get you.
It's a sad reality.
Yeah.
And with the implementation of the WoW token, the more you play, the more gold you need, especially with the price of raiding. But I mean, I can't really talk shit because I wailed the hell out of the Mog station, and
yeah, but that's like boosts and cosmetics, man. It's kind of different.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you could say the boosts give you 500k gil per boost. Oh wow, like that's not a very good conversion rate for the price you're paying. But I mean, I've wailed the hell out of this the marketplace or whatever, the Mog station myself. Like, I mean, I've probably spent over $250 on just emotes and boosts for alts and stuff myself at this point, and it's like, I don't mind it though, because one, all of it, any of it was either cosmetic or time saving, and I know that you can't buy you can't buy an ultimate from the fucking Mog station. You know what I mean? Real money trading or whatever might happen in the background, that's going to happen in any game, but you can't just go to finalfantasy.com and buy the skin for an ultimate weapon. It's not like that. There's still prestige in the game, which is really cool. And yeah, and you can't buy currency in the game, which is another big thing, because then you can't, you know, trade that currency for carries or something like that. So
yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like, I know my money is going to a good place.
Sure.
Like, I feel like when I buy something on the Mog station, I trust that money to go to the developers to help develop the game that I'm enjoying to play. And like, I don't feel that when I play WoW. It's literally the meme of Rich, where he's like, I'm buying another yacht for Bobby Kotick. Like, that's how I feel when I spend money in WoW.
Yeah. Because you're not seeing the fruits of that, like, you're not seeing the reward of that money being put back into the game, it feels like.
Yeah.
Where you know, Final Fantasy, for example, has gotten better each expansion. just as a game. I mean, I don't know, I haven't been here each one, but even just story-wise, like, I would rate the game story-wise from, like, Shadowbringers being the best story, then Stormblood, then Heaven's Ward, then A Realm Reborn. I know I'm kind of like a weird champ person for thinking Stormblood's story was better than Heaven's Ward. Most people think that's a hot take, but I think they did the characters really, really good in Heaven's Ward or in Stormblood. And you got to know a lot of the characters better. But like you can see it from story, from the graphics, from even how good the armor sets look for the most part. I think Stormblood, like that Omega gear, dude.
Oh yeah.
That Omega scape or whatever. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That stuff looks so good, dude.
It does. It looks really good.
Yeah. I
think they're also adding that at least the in bosses for O12S. I think they're adding those to the Mog Station, I believe.
The emotes?
No, the actual like armor of.
Oh, really?
What is it, like Omega F and Omega M or whatever their names are?
Yeah.
I believe they're adding those. It was in the live letter. They had both of them in there. So.
That's pretty cool.
We'll see.
That'll look insane.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, but I definitely feel like as their budget increases, you see the results of their budget increasing, right? Like,
yeah. I hope my biggest hope with the budget increase is that they use that money to fund voice acting for the entire story, because then I will pay 100% attention to what's going on, and I will be much more engaged because I like listening to the story.
That's gonna be an expensive change, my dude. Voice acting ain't cheap. I get that though. For some people, for sure, like the voice acting can add to it. Most of the RPGs I played growing up had no voice acting, so I'm very used to reading all the dialogue and stuff like that. But we've been very spoiled over the last few years by voice acting, and it's been real nice. I won't lie, it's been real good.
At least the cutscenes.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, I'm okay with reading the text between the quests and stuff, but like if you're gonna have a cutscene, that was very jarring for me coming over from WoW. It was like, this cutscene is half voice acted. Why? Why?
Yeah.
Why
WoW
is it like
WoW
this?
has 4 cutscenes and expansion, but they're all voice acted. At least that is true.
Yeah, or you're like going through a quest. I distinctly remember in Battle for Azeroth going down to Ashara land. I don't remember what that was even called. Nazjatar. You're like running with somebody and he's like saying things as you're running with him, and it's like, okay. Like you're still playing the game and you're listening to them talk and communicate with you. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, I mean, every expansion has gotten more voice acting. That's another thing with, like I was saying, you can see the money going. Like, A Realm Reborn had the least, and then Heaven's Ward had a little more, and then you get like Stormblood, where like a good portion of it is, and then Shadowbringers, like half the expansion is voice acted. I feel like, which is like a pretty big step up from the previous iterations. So.
Yeah, it was great. No, I think that's why I love Shadowbringers so much, and why it was hard for me to try to go back. Yeah, I feel like Shadowbringers will spoil you as far as how good it was, but like it's also a bummer because the reason Shadowbringers for me was so good is because obviously it's just a good story straight up, but as you start the journey from step 1 and get to where you are in Shadowbringers and see how these characters change and how the story develops and the weird twists and turns of stuff that was dropped in A Realm Reborn showing back up, you know what I mean? All that. There's a lot of payoff, I guess, from the long burn. But it would be very hard to go back. Like, I don't know. Have you ever watched Full Metal Alchemist, the anime? Yeah.
Did you watch the original and Brotherhood, or just Brotherhood?
I only watched Brotherhood.
Exactly. And you're never going to go back and watch the original because it's kind of trash compared to Brotherhood. Yep. And luckily for me, I watched both. So I got more Full Metal Alchemist, which was fine, but I can't go back and watch it again because Brotherhood is just the canon. It's the better version, and you're not missing a ton, but it's that same idea, right?
Yeah.
That like it's hard to go back to something that's just less quality.
Yep. Well,
That's what you get for being a boosted Andy, dude.
boosty boy. I
Boosty boy.
literally boosted every class in the game
Yeah, dude.
except for dancer and or gunbreaker. I almost said machinist.
Bro, my girlfriend did the same thing, and that's how she had all of her money for her alt on Crystal. Was just she bought every class.
I
Then she was like, "Oh, I got like 12 million gold now."
I just feel like I genuinely would have never gotten into this game
If you didn't boost, yeah.
I
get that.
genuinely would not have gotten into it. And like, I know it's a terrible take and people would probably be so mad to hear that, but it's just like, it's just the kind of player I am. And yeah, I don't go around telling people to boost. I joke about it, but like, I want people to play the story. I want people to experience the story, especially with how much people rave about how amazing the story is, and especially how much I enjoyed Shadowbringers, even though I didn't know what the hell was happening. Like, it was great, and I hope that everyone can experience the game in their own ways. And
yeah,
I think that's what makes this game amazing, is that that's a possibility for everyone to experience the game in their own way.
100%, man. Yeah, and that's the thing. There's nothing wrong with boosting at all, because if it gets more people to play the game, if they wouldn't, in your exact case, like if they wouldn't play the game if there wasn't a boost, then you're just losing out on people at that point who can experience the other cool things about the game. The game isn't just about its story, right?
Yeah.
Like, the story is a big part, and they designed the game to cater to the story 100% from the ground up. Like, everything is there to serve the story. From how the class's animations look, to the dungeons, to the raids, everything serves the story, right? But hell, if you want to go fucking hang out at nightclubs with catgirls, man, you can be a boosty boy real quick and never. I have friends like that. I have multiple friends who literally just played this game to go to RP nightclubs or RP bathhouses and stuff like that, and they have no idea what the story is at all.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
That's
they
so
literally.
funny.
I have a friend like that. She's hilarious. She's actually a DJ at and she has her own club, and she finally hit level 80 after playing for like 6 months. And we did the near raids with her, and she was just dead on the floor the entire time, and it was fucking hilarious. But she wanted the 2B boots and the thong for her club when she's DJing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was just a crack up. It was like, yep. And we were all joking. We had a whole group of people who have never done content together, only go to nightclubs. We all were our whole alliance was 8 people, just for this one person to get a slutty outfit.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, it was actually great.
I love that, man. I just love how the game enables people to expose themselves to things they've never thought to even exist and or thought that they could try.
Yeah.
It's just such a cool feeling and such a cool thing to do.
And it flows very naturally, right?
Yeah.
Like the reason they did that raid is because they saw someone at a nightclub with that outfit on and was like, damn, I want to wear that. So they're like, how do I get that? Okay. It's like, you know, I saw the Manderville dance for the first time, and what was the first thing I did when I finished Stormblood? Was went and did that quest. I put everything on hold to go get my Manderville unlocked, because the Manderville Mambo was incredible.
And then you enjoyed that little side story.
The whole quest line.
Yeah.
I would have done it eventually, I'm sure, because I'm just kind of super invested in this game right now and just everything it has to give. But it gave me, like, it was like a cool thing to look forward to, right? Where I was like, oh, Stormblood's almost done. I'm going to get my Mambo soon. You know, like, I just knew it. And it was just like a dope moment. So yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, we'll have you answer Joro's question before we go.
All right.
And then we'll wrap it up after that, unless there's other questions that people have. So he says, is it rude to ERP in the middle of raid with the main tank's wife? I think he's referring to your in-game wife that
I think he's
you
referring
co-tank
to me,
with.
because Blurry is our main tank. So I think he might be referring to me.
Oh, true.
If it's towards me, it's not rude. If it's towards my wife, it's hella rude. That's basically the answer I'm giving.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Y'all's duo has been amazing. Seeing both of you tank is so funny.
It's actually one of the funniest and probably one of my favorite parts of the game.
It's great
playing with the boys that I've met, specifically in this game, and it's just been a blast every single time. Like, it doesn't matter. Yeah, there's frustration sometimes when bosses aren't dying and stuff, but all it takes is one of them to crack a joke or Blurry to be too high to fucking keep his eyes open,
or you miss a shirt,
or me, yeah, I miss a taunt or something, and then everything just goes downhill, and it's just great, man. It's been a blast for sure.
That's awesome. Well,
Yep.
I don't have anything else. If you had any questions for me, feel free. If not, that's okay too. But I think I'm down to call it a night. I've had a long ass day, and my throat is like dying for some reason from talking so much.
Yeah, man. No, I'm very happy with everything, man. It was great talking to you, and yeah, get some rest, bro. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. No, I always appreciate doing these. I say it every single stream. Like, there's always like some kind of feeling in me that doesn't want to do these, and then I do them, and then it's like, oh man, that was so much fun. I can't wait to do the next one. Awesome. It's kind of like accepting plans to go out with your friends, and then the date comes and you're like, I don't really want to go, and then you go and you actually end up having fun. Like, that's kind of what this is. But no, I'm so happy that like we get to do these and just meet and hang out with people and learn more about people. But I seriously appreciate you taking time out of your evening to hang out and chat. I know this was late, at least for me. You're West Coast, and I think you said you stay up pretty late, so I don't know how much that affects you, but
we haven't even hit DGen hours for me yet. It's only 10 p.m. dude. We're chilling. I'm in my prime right now.
Oh yeah.
But no, it was a blast, dude. Thanks again for having me on, brother.
For sure. We'll meet up again, and for those who may have showed up late and or didn't catch the whole thing, I will upload this VOD to YouTube at some point. It'll most likely get posted on Saturday morning because that's when I like to upload things. So look forward to that if you didn't get the chance to see the whole VOD. And if you did, thank you for hanging out and watching the stream and supporting the content. So y'all have a good night. Thanks again, Travy, and take it easy.
Later, guys.